I walked into one of our staff meetings one day, and I just went up to the whiteboard where we track a lot of the measurables and attendance and other things, and I just erased it. I said, we will no longer look at this as any measure of success. And then I kind of changed and shifted our whole model of what the church should be. And I said, Sunday mornings are going to be a part of what we do. They are no longer going to be the pinnacle. Wow. We're not going to live our life for the week or through the week to build up to get to Sunday. Yeah. And in that, I said, here's what we're going to do. We're going to ask one question to determine success for us. And it's, are we loving people well?
Hey, man. How you doing?
Hey, I'm doing great.
Channock Banet. Bro, we're finally doing this.
Yeah, it's about time.
Right? It's about time. We have done a podcast together. I was on Two Pastors and a Mic with you and Corey Rice about a year ago. You're in just north of Louisville, right?
Right in the Louisville area, but on the Indiana side. Floyd's Knobs, Indiana.
Yeah. Well, is it Knobs? What is it?
Floyd's Knobs, yeah. Floyd's possessive, Knobs plural. Yeah, it actually, what's funny, and I'll just go ahead and just start off right off the gate, it always makes the top 10 list of most provocative town names in America. Yeah, that's us.
Oh, it's a good place. I was there last year for a conference that was thrown by Englehart, Jamie, who's been part of this, friend, and a lot of mutual connections, and loved getting to know you. And the church that you're pastoring, that you guys, that was the host church. Yep. I actually stayed at Corey's house, and my first experience to the area was he was picked me up from the airport, and on the drive to his house, we drove past a minivan where the front driver's side tire was blown out, and he was driving on the rim.
They were still driving. Sparks flying.
Corey was like, welcome, bro.
Welcome to Louisville.
No, it was awesome. He'd never seen anything like it. I hadn't either. But, man, I loved our conversation, and I loved getting to know you. I've read a little bit of the book that you've written. I also know about the ministry. But share a little bit about yourself. Introduce yourself to the folks.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'd love to. So my story, well, I thought it was a unique story until Bishop Jamie, who you mentioned, had a pastoral leadership summit a few years ago, and come to find out it's a very similar story to what a lot of pastors in his network have. And being that my parents were pastors and now I am lead pastor, took over the ministry from my dad in 2012, but always been a part of the church, love the local church. Given my life to serve the body. And my dad and mom co-pastored, which is wild for our area. We're in a very heavily reformed area, and having my dad, but also my mom, be a pastor and have that influence in the community was different for a lot of people in this community. But served with them, served under them for a lot of years. They faithfully served 40 years. Yeah. And just did some amazing things, built up a great foundation, and really, so that's the church and the environment that I grew up in, and took over for my dad in 2012. I actually met Bishop Jamie Englehart right before I took over, several years before I took over, while I was still youth pastor. He stayed at my house, got to really know him, his family. And just the message that he carried was definitely new, I would say. Like I feel like my dad understood grace, preached grace, but Jamie brought a new depth to that I really just was inspired by. And so kind of connected with him very closely. I now consider him one of my spiritual dads in the faith. And he actually moved to this area because I hired his daughter as our worship pastor, Pastor Britt. He's amazing and writing New Covenant songs right now. Matter of fact, we're doing a night of worship to get a live recording for 6 new songs that she has written. That album will be released sometime 2026, and just excited about that. But Met my wife at high school. I was a senior. She was a sophomore. Met in choir class of all places. I cannot sing a lick. Like what I tell people is like, I'm not even qualified to be the joyful noise guy. Like I can't do anything when it comes to worship, singing, music. But I signed up for that class because it was a smaller Christian school. I graduated with 17 people, so very small.
Okay.
But all the cute girls were in choir, so obviously that's the class that I'm going to sign up for. But I met my wife Melanie, high school sweethearts. We've been married 22 years now. We have 4 boys, 19, 17, 13, 12, and just living life. Sometimes I tell people, of course, to pray for my wife. She has 5 boys at home, trying to raise them, and I'm one of them.
Rowdy house.
Rowdy bunch. We're actually going through a little bit of a new season because my oldest, who's 19, ended up graduating, got into a trade, got a decent job, and he actually just moved out 2 weeks ago. So we're still navigating new dynamic in our family and without our son at home. So it's a bittersweet thing. You know, I'm proud of him and I want to support him, and he's doing awesome. But at the same time, I wasn't quite ready to see him go. And he's very independent, always has been. But I don't know how often we'll see him now that he's living his own life, doing his own thing. But we're adjusting to that. So that's kind of like a little bit of my background, a little bit about like who I am. Definitely family oriented, and just born and raised in the church, and went through a lot of seasons within that, but still definitely have a love for the local church for sure.
Your son is, does he have the same young man confidence you had to join the choir that you couldn't sing in?
I will say he doesn't sing either or play any instruments. He's got a good amount of confidence. Matter of fact, I would probably say, out of anyone I've ever met, he might be a little too overconfident, like as a 19-year-old thinking he knows it all. And
I have one of those. He's 24 now, but I think that's the way it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
A few things I heard, and a little bit about this podcast because we've connected and had conversation, and I would imagine based on what you and Corey tackle, some of the conversations, theological, relational, all those things that you guys, because Two Pastors and a Mic, it's right behind you, is your podcast. Great podcast, by the way, guys. Go listen to it. Most of them already are, but
appreciate that.
But it sounds like your journey in some ways, we might be able to relate. And you can tell me this, like my dad was involved in pastoring throughout most of my life, and was growing. He modeled kindness, he modeled love, and was growing theologically, very practical in his theology. So it was very relational, which was helpful to me. Obviously, that aligns with my journey. But I never had a typical PK, that rebellious, throw the whole thing out journey. Mine was one of saying yes at 5, growing up in and out of different churches. We moved a lot, so it wasn't one location, but we were always a part of the church, and growing aware of who God is, and shifting and rethinking. And some of those seasons were tough, and certainly I found myself being pushed out of the church for several years at a time. But there was never a disconnect in my relationship with God. I'm curious if that's your journey, if it's been
similar. Yeah, very similar. Coming to faith at 5 years old, probably the same thing you just said. Yeah. Being in one location and seeing my dad, who was very highly relational as a pastor, and learning that, and that was what was modeled for me. Now, I will say a little bit of my parents' story was they came out of the Catholic faith. My dad went to Mass a couple times a year, and that was it. Yeah. And so him coming into faith in Jesus in the mid-70s through what he calls the charismatic movement, and understanding, seeing what God was doing, showing up to different houses, having Bible studies. And there was a group of about 30 or 40 that were meeting just to unpack Scripture and to try to find Jesus, and looking at Scripture through the lens of Jesus. And they were actually reading through Hebrews. And it got to the point, Jesus is our mediator. And there's like, wait, we don't need a priest to go through to connect with God. And it all started to click. And then so just seeing different miracles take place, he's like, okay, God, I know you've started something here. Well, the guy that they were having lead these Bible studies were coming like an hour away to just drive and lead. And they would drive home, not really from the community. And one day as he was leaving, the guy that was teaching the Bible study looked around and said, this is a church. And everybody's like, what are you talking about? Like, they were looking around and like, yeah, you all even have a pastor. We do? What do you mean? And he said, yeah, it's Daryl Banet right there. And my dad was like, wait, what, me? And then he tells a story that day he kind of vowed, like, God, I know you started something here, and I'm going to see it through until you bring along someone better. Like, I don't want this to end. In his mind, he's thinking a few weeks, maybe a few months. And as he tells the story, little did he know it would be 34 years later and his son that would eventually step in and take over the call to pastor this local congregation in this community.
I just watched, there's like a 12-minute video on Hill City's website. Hill City is the name of your church, by the way. And so I actually watched some of that story because there's a history of the church. Mm-hmm. But that's partly how I was like, okay, so your journey was, because this podcast, and we're going to get to some of the ways that you're rethinking pastoring, rethinking ministry, because we talked beforehand about the things that are burning, and that's always my heart is can we get to the burning in these conversations? But the goal is that we're rethinking God and having better thoughts about who he is and the last best thoughts we had, and the transformative, that they actually are impacting, and how I've navigated life. I've loved my wife, my kids, and for me, that this journey's been one where honestly there were seasons I couldn't do it within the four walls, only because they didn't want me.
Right.
But there was never a moment where, in fact, at 18, 19, I'm at one of those typical meetings for youth. Might have been 17, 18. The girl gets up and she's gotten saved from alcohol and promiscuity. And the next guy gets up and he's gotten saved from, he's given his life back to the Lord, because drugs, he's not doing drugs, and someone else is from Satanism. And I'm in the back going, I don't have a testimony. And hearing my Heavenly Father tell me at that moment, Jason, your testimony is my favorite. Yeah. Now, I think he says that to all of us, but your testimony is my favorite because it's the one in which you grew up in a house in which you knew my affection and you knew my love, and you didn't have to play some prodigal game. And I love that. That's what I want for my kids. And I feel like that resonates with your story, but I know that you've had to do some rethinking and some hard restructuring along the way. I read the first couple chapters. I haven't read the whole thing of your book enough already, from the private hell of performance to the freedom of knowing I am. Mm-hmm. And I loved the first story about what was
Shanncock Bante.
Shanncock.
That's my alter ego.
Shanncock Bante or something.
Yeah, Shanncock Bante.
But that awakening moment, like you've had those, like speak to some of those major shifts, because I've had all along the way, I had profound encounters with the love of God. Like Jesus was my best friend, but there were all kinds of times where I had to do mental gymnastics and get myself into theological pretzels to somehow defend some sovereign controlling father who would look away, and right. Yet then I would have another encounter and these Shanncock Bante moments in life. Like speak to that, and maybe we can start to talk about how that's applied to where you are today. Yeah, no, absolutely. And so I would say, we've already talked about my dad a little bit, but my dad being my hero, seeing him set the example of sacrificial love, loving our family, loving the community, loving people that would drag him through the mud, that would vilify him, that would slander him, and still have that much love. So that's my example. And I want to bring that up because when it came then to my relationship with God and the God that I was preaching and teaching and hearing other pastors and preachers talk about and preach, it's one of those things where I walk away sometimes thinking, man, I love my dad. My dad can't be a better dad and better father than my heavenly Father. Right.
And yet this is how he's being portrayed. Like,
Right.
my dad's a better dad than this dad that you're describing right now. And I think that was probably the first major shift, walking away from some of those messages, some of those sermons and ideologies, where I was like something doesn't like translate here. Something we've gotten off somewhere.
Right.
If my dad has been a better dad to me, then I can describe God being a better dad to me. And so, so within that just started me just on a journey with help from guys like Corey and Bishop Jamie, and that teaching, where I'll call it just New Covenant Kingdom and messages of union. And what Corey and I both like to say is this idea of union really changed our life. Like no separation at all, ever in our life.
Yeah.
And then hearing some of those things, and then hearing, some of the teachings. I remember hearing a message one time, and just kind of going through 2 Timothy. We all know 2 Timothy 1:7, for the spirit that God gives us is not, timid, and doesn't lead to fear, but it's a power, love, and a sound mind. Well, a few verses later, it talks about how he saved us and called us, both past tense. And he talks about how we were found in Christ Jesus, in his grace, from the beginning of time. and some of these things are being unpacked in my journey.
Yeah.
Starting probably about that same time that I took over. What is wild, though, go ahead.
Well, I was going to ask you, did you want to be a pastor? Was that like something you thought, I want to do this thing? Or...
Well, again,
is that
seeing my dad's example, yes and no. So, yes, I'd actually gotten different prophetic words about pastoring, following my dad's footsteps at a young age. I talk about in the book a little bit about how, I don't know how much I really, looking back, appreciated those moments, because sometimes I felt like sometimes what I'm doing or what I did do was like chosen for me, and I had no choice, of my own. And I unpack what that looks like in the book. But growing up, like I was big time into basketball, and I wanted to be a high school basketball coach. So I actually got my undergrad from Indiana University, and I was getting ready to go into student teaching.
Yeah.
And I already finished all of my curriculum, all my coursework. It was the last year, just student teaching left. And that's when it just really came over me like I am called to help the church. I am called to set a different example, and really in the season to really help my dad.
Yeah.
And I reached out to him and I said, hey, I don't know what this means, but
that's cool.
I don't think I'm going to go through this last year of college and into student teaching. I think I'm supposed to be in ministry, and I'm supposed to help you, whatever you need help with. And it just so happens, he's like, well, that's funny you're calling me, because we just had a meeting yesterday, and I was going to call you at some point today, that our youth pastor actually was leaving to go back to California, where he's from, and the board unanimously voted for us to offer you to come and be the youth pastor here at what was then Cornerstone. I changed the name to Hill City, but so that's kind of how that played out, where I got really connected.
You took
but I wanted to be a coach, and then I found out later on I could still be a basketball coach, and I did at my alma mater for several years, until I started having too many kids, and then I was spending time with other boys, not my own, and decided to make the choice to focus on family for a little bit, and got out of coaching. But yeah.
Good. As you took the traditional youth pastor track.
Yeah. Yep.
I finished Bible college. Now, see, this is where our stories split. I finished Bible college. My dad didn't have a church. I couldn't make that suit fit, so I started a band. Very, very different.
Well, I mean, to be honest, my dad actually was in a very tragic hunting accident in 2000, where he actually fell 30 feet out of a tree stand and shattered his spine. They pulled out over 90 pieces of spine and bone fragment. He's got 2 fake cage vertebrae disc. He's got 2 14-inch titanium rods that make up his spine. Had to learn to walk again, had to learn to do everything all over again. And so that's kind of what I was stepping into as well, knowing that
you needed help.
He just needed help, really. Yeah. And he recovered back to almost everything he was going to do and was doing. But it's affecting his body even today. But it's a miracle he's alive, which is a different story all in of itself. But But that's why actually I took over in 2012. I was only 32.
Yeah.
My dad was probably about 50,
Right.
52. And so, so it was one of those things probably way before his time where he maybe would have wanted
Right.
to, but just different pain and physical issues. He just wasn't able to do it anymore.
Sure.
So
So then you took over, and I interrupted you. That was where the rethinking, you said, around that season, probably not then. I mean, at 32, I mean, man, the things that I was burning for, while also greatly confused when it came to atonement theory, my theological constructs. I had this God who met me, and anytime I met him, there was no separation. But I didn't have the language for that. I just knew he was loved and that he loved me.
yeah,
And then, of course, the confusion of what I can now point to as PSA or any of these things that we were raised with, where separation is woven into maybe every aspect of how we do life, how we do church. And so you were starting to say that there was a shift, kind of an opening. I don't know if I interrupted you. I don't want to.
yeah, no, that's okay. Yeah. So, so my dad, I know I keep talking about my dad. It's just kind of like my experience,
my
right?
My hero too. Mom and dad are amazing.
So he didn't have ever any formal training, never went to seminary, and just was, like I said, out of the Catholic faith and just started this thing. And then he just figured it out as he went. And so that was kind of my model, to be a lifelong learner. And
Love that, man. Lifelong learner.
and just to experience things. And that's why, like, for many years, like our services and things did look like a hodgepodge of belief and backgrounds, because that's really what it was.
Right.
And my dad was okay to shift and to realize he didn't have it all figured out, and to go down different roads,
Right.
Which then freed me up to discover and to learn. And to figure out some of these things, like you talked about, like PSA and some of the atonement theories, and to shift and adjust, and to think, like, to be okay to move away from things that maybe are more traditional in evangelical church worlds,
Sure.
and to be okay to say, that doesn't look like a loving dad.
Right. Dude, that's it. That's what you were saying. That's right. You were saying, hey, I can't be a better my dad can't be a better father than he is.
Yeah.
And then for me, it's the same. Once I had kids, boy, you want to test your theology, and they hand you your daughter, my firstborn. So we have 2 girls, a boy in the middle, so 3 kids, and they handed me my daughter. And I mean, I'm not having deep theological thoughts in that moment, but I am, in the sense that there's nothing that this little girl could do. I often joke they handed her to me, and I'm like, well, we'll see how this goes, based on, there was none of that.
Right.
I don't look at her going, we'll see how this goes. It was like, everything I have is yours.
Same. When I had my firstborn son, when he was born, and I held him in my arms, it's probably one of 2 or 3 times I can remember in my life that it was just uncontrollable emotion and tears, like in the most beautiful way.
Right.
And to sit there and hold my son and be like, he's perfect. He could do no wrong. He's not born in sin. Like, he is beautiful, and he is loved right now where he's at, regardless of anything he ever does. He will always be my son. And some of those moments, 100% trace back to being a parent, but then also having an amazing parent, and being raised in that loving environment, to then understand, like, man, God as love, and it makes sense.
Yeah, bro. And I was just talking to a new friend, and he was telling me a story, and he's kind of pastored more home churches, but he's awakening to this message of union. No. And he's wrestling, like so many do, with scripture that has a separation lens woven into it. I mean, we don't even realize how we read scripture. We call it a biblical hermeneutic, which doesn't even make sense to me anymore. I'm like, well, you can make the Bible say anything. Let's have a Christological hermeneutic.
Right. Yep.
Which is what you were saying earlier. It's got to look like Jesus. But he had this statement where he said he was, and he's figuring it out, and he said to to a relative who said, if anyone ever did anything to my child, I would strike them dead, right? And his response was, but what if it was? She said, if anybody did anything to my daughter, and he said, well, what if it was your son? And when he said that to her, she shifted, because his point was, we're all God's kids, and he feels the way that you and I felt about my daughter or about your son, he feels about every single one of us. I mean, to me, sometimes to navigate into a better thought that is transformative, the best way to navigate it is to talk about our kids, is to talk about our parents, is to actually bring it back down to how does this work in the context of being a mom. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think the second big shift for me, being able to travel as much as I did, specifically even with my dad, to travel around the world to places like India and South America and the places that he had actually built relationships with, experiencing and being exposed to other people groups, other cultures, and then really understanding, it brings to light even more, like what Paul says on Mars Hill, Acts 17, for in him we live and move and have our being. Like he's talking to, a group of pagan unbelievers. Yeah. In him, Jesus, we live, move, have our being, for we are all God's offspring, for we are all God's kids. And for me, that shift was very easy to come to light. Being around all these different people groups, backgrounds, religions, and seeing, man, these are just God's kids who need love and to be shown love. That's all we're really called to do is to love. The only command that he's given us, and the only command we're under, is to love, because it's kids loving other kids, right?
Yeah, bro. And for me, the journey, so it started with, we love because he first loved. So my journey was one, and if it all comes down to love, which, it's actually not that hard either. Jesus brought it all back down to this loving of the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, strength, your neighbors, you love yourself. But then you've got 1 John 4, I think it's verse 19. We love because he first loved. You can't give away what you don't have. And so there was, for me, a major shift in my life of first getting a perspective of how the Father perceived me. Right. And coming into an alignment with how I perceive, which I think probably comes back to your Shanncock Bante story. Like, by the way, for people that go read the book, but you booked a hotel in Aruba with a bunch of guys, I think. And long story short, they didn't have Channock Banet, but they did have a booking for Shanncock Bante.
And I took it. Now, looking back, I'm pretty sure it was mine, but at that moment, I made this reservation for a group of 4 of us under my name, and they didn't have it. The lady checked 3 or 4 times. No other occupancy in the hotel. Almost probably nothing on the island, she said. We don't have your reservation. There's nothing we can do. And I said, check one more time. And she's like, no, we do have a Mr. Bante, a Mr. Shanncock Bante. I was like, that's me. And so I took it. And the funny thing was, all that week, any reservation, the cabanas, the towel rack, like everything was under Shanncock Bante. So I just tell people that week that I was in Aruba in 2013, that I wasn't, the pastor from Indiana who lived this way. I'm Shanncock Bante in Aruba, and I can do whatever I want to do. And so that just opened me up to like this question, like, why? What? I look back on that, like, why did I want to be someone other than who I was? Or why did I have such a good time and a fun time being someone else other than who I was? And those two things, like, they should line up, and they didn't. And so how can I just be more free, loving, full of life as Channock? Even if I'm a pastor here in Indiana, why did I feel like the need to let loose a little bit, or to actually, and again, what I have to tell people, I have to give this caveat, right? It isn't like I wanted to go out and do anything crazy or illegal or get drunk all day long. It was just like the weight of expectation that I was living under, some from other people, mostly from myself, that I had to escape from and get out from underneath to actually breathe, to feel light, to feel free. And so coming back, there was this wrestle for a few years, like, what's going on in me? Why am I feeling this tension, and why can't I live free as Jesus called us to live free? So yeah, that's the premise of the book. And then it unpacks just a spiritual journey, for half of it that I went through personally, with a lot of group therapy and some exposure to some great, not just leadership principles, but I'll call them emotional health, EQ, highlights that really helped me on my journey. And then that shifted really how I lead now, how I pastor. And it led to some really cool moments of even starting some new ministries and a new nonprofit specifically. So.
Hey guys, interrupting just for a second to thank you all for listening to the podcast. Grateful for the opportunity to continue to have these conversations and the community that's grown around this podcast. It blows my mind, the goodness of God in our lives, the connections and relationships made. The podcast is listener supported, and I'm so grateful for those who partner with us that way. You can do that at afamilystory.org. That's also where you can sign up for our mailing list and stay up with all things tacos related and the ministry of Family Story. We also have a Facebook group. Lots of incredible conversations and connections taking place there. I love what's happening. It can get spicy, but it's good. And finally, we have launched an online Rethinking God with Tacos community. It's subscriber-based. I love this because there's an opportunity for us to intentionally connect and go deeper together. That's where we work on book studies. We're currently working on one of mine, weekly, connecting on Zoom calls, having guests, folks like Bill Vanderbush, Jamie Englehart, Baxter Kruger, Randall Worley, on and on. So many friends that I've had on the podcast. I love what's taking place there. There's teaching constantly happening. And my book is available for free. The Rethinking God with Tacos book. If you sign up, the first month's free. We also provide scholarships if needed. All of this is available at afamilystory.org. Incredibly grateful for all the ways that we're connecting and discovering the measureless, always good love of God together. All right, I'm going to let you get back to the podcast. Let's talk about that, but let's segue into it, because the thing I was getting at, and I have these, to me, I have these moments, like that seems like a pivotal revelatory moment, right, where you suddenly are going to some sort of incongruency within me, and for me, the shift was, getting a perspective, my father's perspective, that came on the tail end of a couple of years where I couldn't sense his presence. Where he basically said, you don't get a say in how I see you. And I see you through the finished work. I see you in Christ. I see you as a giant in the faith. And I believe he sees this in all of us. But the shift was realizing I needed, it was a invitation into union, because, some of what you're describing is still, if you're not comfortable in your own skin, there's a separation thing going on anyway. Like I'm living a dualistic life.
Right, dualism.
Yeah. And so the shift in me was, I have to come into alignment with this union vision of who I am in Christ, this love that is measureless, that doesn't separate, that doesn't move to the left or the right. So I had that same shift, but that same shift then took me down roads where I began to explore where there might be lines of separation, whether it's in my theology or in my understanding of ministry, and my understanding of what it means to live as an expression of confidence in his affection, being confident as Jason Clark in my own skin, awakened to his love today, living as an expression of it. What does it look like to live fully alive as Jason? And the idea that ministry, once upon a time was presented through the lens of separation, as you've got the guys at the pulpit, and then you got the people that sit, as opposed to every one of us is a walking minister. Every one of us is first ministering to ourselves, and then to our areas of influence in our marriage, to our kids. And as a pastor, you've been rethinking. You've been rethinking ministry, if you will, or rethinking. How would you say it? You might have even said it somewhere. I'm trying to find.
If we're going back to the book, like one of the chapters I even write about is rethinking church.
Right.
Also, and there's also leading with love, not metrics, which goes back to rethinking church. And for me, it just got to that point. If you want me to share just quickly on it,
do it.
where I just got tired of just thinking success was in nickels and noses and all these measurables that we as the church come up with. Like, this is a successful ministry or church. It looks like this, and so many salvations or baptisms, and so many dollars coming in from offerings. And just looking at that, I remember just being so frustrated with that. I walked into one of our staff meetings one day, and I just went up to the whiteboard where we track a lot of the measurables and attendance and other things, and I just erased it. I said, we will no longer look at this as any measure of success. And then I kind of changed and shifted our whole model of what the church should be. And I said, Sunday mornings are going to be a part of what we do. They are no longer going to be the pinnacle. Wow. We're not going to live our life for the week or through the week to build up to get to Sunday. Yeah. And in that, I said, here's what we're going to do. We're going to ask one question to determine success for us. And it's, are we loving people well? Come on. And then we just started asking people that, right? Asking people that maybe have left the ministry, that are still part of the ministry. And I said, success is going to look like us walking in to our weekly staff meetings on Monday morning. And instead of looking at any of these measurables, what we're going to do is we're going to tell stories of our connections with people over the last week. Come on. And what God is doing in not only our lives, but our community's life. What are the stories that we can hear from that? And so that was the shift. That was in 2018 that kind of took place. And so then even thinking about rethinking what it even looks like to lead a church, we completely got away from just the Sunday morning only model, like that. Yeah. That was the pinnacle. That was what we all need to be focused on. And more so that we just are the church living out every single day, just the call to love our neighbor. Come on. That's and I can imagine that over time becomes culturally a part of the DNA, like a part of everyone who's participating. These stories of have we loved well, or how, because that's the testimony. That's where the life is, the transformation that takes place. And I think that's what folks are hungry for. I think, we've got this wild thing happening right now in this podcast where there's a lot of folks who have been beat up by a separation message, serving a model, a Sunday morning institutional model that serves that message, but uses the language of family. And so we've got a lot of folks who've thrown out sometimes the baby with the bathwater, only now to discover, wait, we have to meet, we have to gather, we have to connect. We are the body, we are the ecclesia. Yeah. What does that look like? It can look like Sunday mornings, but it's got to be the Monday through Sunday. It's got to be the entire week. What does it look like to be loved and to live loved, man? I loved being with you guys. I love what's coming out of there, but I also love how it's caused you to then rethink. And this is, I know it's burning in you, because you've got this nonprofit called ReLife, which is talk about a practical way of loving, right? Still organized, still all of the things that have to happen to make it work. But talk about that. So I'll segue it basically from what you just said as well, like our shifts in theology and throwing out some of that stuff, right? And moving away from the atonement stuff, moving away from any eternal conscious torment, moving away from anything that looks like separation, preaching and teaching, pure love, pure union, no separation, like all of the stuff. Of course, you go through seasons where you might lose people that aren't understanding what you're saying and the direction you're going. That's not what they've been used to hearing, so that's challenging to them. But we said we're going to do that anyway. We're going to be that light in the community, in the Louisville area. And with that, though, and leading with love, not metrics, and rethinking church, we still had to ask the question, well, then why gather? Why are we all coming together? Well, one, we need to learn more and get an understanding of who our Father not only is, but who He's always been. And so we definitely want to offer that to our community? But even more than that, how can we practically love our community? And you probably have heard it being raised around the church world. I think a lot of pastors and leaders and ministries have wrestled with this question. But if your church was to close the doors tomorrow, would your community even know?
Right.
Or would they even care?
Right.
And I would have to say for the longest time, probably they wouldn't have. They wouldn't have cared. Right. Or maybe they wouldn't have known. Now, right. The few families and the families that are involved in the life of the community, they would know. But the outside community, they probably wouldn't even care. And I'll say we have to change that. We have to change how the community feels about what the church is doing. And we have to change this idea and the model that church is only about services and teaching and preaching, that we are practically helping our neighbors and loving our neighbors well. And it is something that is really on my heart. And so I'll kind of just back up and start from the beginning.
Yeah. Come on.
There was a season coming out of COVID where, we come out of COVID, I think we even did this sermon series called like New Normal. And in about 3 months, everything went back to what it was and how we were doing life in church and ministry before COVID. And I was thinking there's got to be something else. Something's got to be on the horizon. I even took like a 7-week sabbatical. I'll talk about it in the book as well, just to kind of get my head on straight. Like, man, what's next for us, God? Like, what's this next season look like? I feel like we're trajecting in a positive way and conveying you in a positive light. And really talking about new covenant kingdom stuff. I feel like that's all good, but it just feels like there's something missing. Like this can't be all that we do. And getting very frustrated because for about a year and a half, nothing was coming. The Spirit wasn't saying anything to me, giving me any direction. Yeah. And as a leader, being directionless, like that's like sure. sucking the oxygen from your life. Like right. you have to have vision as you're leading. Sure. Yeah. And direction.
Follow me, guys. I don't know where we're going.
Yeah. Into who knows where. And I've always done some real estate on the side. My dad actually was bivocational, and he was a framer and construction guy and pastor of the church for a long time. And so I've been at job sites like that from the time I could walk. So I kind of knew that world, and I have done a little bit in real estate on my own. And I was actually looking at a property to buy to add to my rental portfolio. I have just a couple of houses that I keep and I rent out. And I went to put an offer, but it was a foreclosure, and they said only people that can bid at this time are people that are going to be owner occupants or government agencies or nonprofit entities. And I'm like, oh man, that stinks. But I guess I'll just wait. So I waited like at the end of the time, I don't know if it was 30 or 60 days. And the day I could put a bid in as an investor, I did. I ended up getting the house. Every day from the day I got the house for probably 2 or 3 weeks, that phrase kept coming back to my mind. Owner occupant, government agencies, nonprofit entities. It was about the 3rd week of hearing that phrase every day. Finally, the Spirit like kind of smacks me upside the head. A light bulb goes off. Hello, nonprofit entities. Do you hear that? I'm like, oh, wait, I'm not only pastor, I'm also president of the organization. We are a nonprofit organization. You mean the church can come in and buy these houses before investors can get to them? We get them at a discounted rate and a price. We, get the property and we don't pay property tax once we own the property. We get any material at tax exempt, right, that we purchase. And I got people now that our motto in our community is, are we loving people well? What are we doing in the community? Let's get out. And I've always just paired people with other partnering ministries that are doing stuff, being the hands and feet of Jesus in our community. But we have yet to start anything and do anything that God's been calling us to do. And I'm just hearing this and so I'm thinking, surely there are other churches and other nonprofits that are doing this. Like this is a way the church can tangibly really help and offer affordable rates, even on sell a property or maybe acquire these properties, offer affordable housing and affordable rent rates for people. Surely there's churches out here doing this. Right. And I started to search for about a month. I couldn't find a single one, not one. And I'm like, well, I guess this is our call to start. Wow. And so I got that kind of vision in February 2023. By August of 2023, I had bought my first property, or we had bought our first property, raising funds through the church. We had over $30,000 donated from different businesses. We had over 1,100 volunteer man hours. And we formed like this nonprofit from the ground up. And people have been coming out of the woodwork like crazy. And it isn't just a Channock thing. It is truly a community thing. And we have committees that vet different moms. We have like liaisons who work with specifically, as I was going around trying to find if anybody had been doing this, what I had encountered was other nonprofits who have things that really help our community and help like women leaving domestic abuse situations or single moms facing homelessness. Like there's so many cool ministries like that in our specific town, in our community and in our county, but everything is temporary. They have like 18-month classes, or they'll house a mom for up to a year, but then nothing after that. And they said, we have some incredible programs. We have these 18 to 24-month programs that moms can go through. They can get holistic healing. They can get counseling and budgeting classes and parenting classes and help with their resources and kids. But then once they're graduated, our biggest hiccup is to get them acclimated back into their own place and paying their own, rent and to getting into a house or apartment, whatever that looks like. I was like, well, then that's where we can come in and we can be that. So we started what we thought was just going to be offering affordable housing, but we realized we don't just want to be landlords. We really want to empower these single parents for home ownership. Come on. And so we created a whole program where the 2-year program, we pair them with actually a mentor that's trained, and they walk through life with them. They teach them how to be homeowners and what they have to do to pay rent on time, to pay their utilities, to even things like, let's change out the air conditioning and the furnace or the furnace filter and things like that. And so they walk with them holistically in life. We pair them with a therapist that they can see. And we got people just volunteering for all of this. And then we got different banks involved. They have programs now that are helping the moms with building their credit. And then when they get into the program, they don't know this. And then we walk through this with them. But at the end of 2 years, we actually gift them back everything they paid in the affordable rate rent, which the committee sets based on their budget and their finances. We gift them everything back, so then they can take that and use that as a down payment to buy the house from us at cost, not even fair market value, just whatever we had into it. So it truly is something that that I'm really passionate about, as you can see. Like I'm coming to life talking about this. And we're up to 4 different homes, and then one of the homes actually, if to buy the house, we had to acquire this old, dilapidated, falling down church building that was on the property with it. And the coolest thing is, one, how we acquired that property is pretty wild in getting it cheaper. Well, let me just tell the story real quick, because I got a lot of stories with this, and then you just cut me off anytime you want me to move on to something else. But so when we acquired the first property, it was on a street called Silver Street here in New Albany in our town. And I would pass this house that happened to have that church building next to it every day, working on this house. Like, man, that'd be cool for our second property. Ended up, it was like, I'll just give the numbers. It was like $240,000, what they were asking for. But they said it was commercial. You can use the building for commercial purposes or whatever, commercially zoned. Right. So that's why they were asking that much, even though both properties needed a ton of work. And I was like, no, I can't do that. So I kept looking. We got our second property. Then we bought our third property. Well, that one was still on the market, and they dropped it to like 180. I was like, well, I'll go look at it. Maybe I can, offer them way less because I know it needs work. We looked at it. Did need a lot of work. We walked through the inside, and we came up with $140,000 is all we could do to buy the property. And they're like, no, well, we just lowered to 180. We can't consider that. And I'm like, okay, no worries. God has something else for us. And just to put a little pin right there, the thing I've learned the most throughout this process is really learning to live in the flow, to not force. Because when it's God, you can live in the flow, and He just brings things to fruition, and it's played out the whole way. Anytime I try to force anything, it never turns out. But with this whole thing, I've never once picked up the phone to raise money. I've never once had to reach out to somebody because we were desperate to get something done. Bro, things just have flown.
Moving at the pace of peace is something that I've been learning. I just let's just go at the pace of peace, man.
I love that. Yeah.
Bro. All right.
So it's in the flow.
Yeah.
And so I left that property. Well, 2 weeks goes by, and I played basketball with this guy. He's a good friend of mine. We played basketball, didn't say anything, and then he texts me right after we get done playing. And he said, "Hey, I have a house for you in the nonprofit that you started." And I said, "Okay, great. Where's it at?" He goes, "Oh, it's down on Silver Street. It's this house with a church attached to it." I'm like, "Oh, I know that place. I actually offered on that a couple weeks ago." He wouldn't take my offer. And he goes, "No." He goes, "All you have to do is call the realtor. I got the deal done for you. It's in ReLife's name. You just have to call and verify it. And I got it for you for $130,000. So even cheaper than what I even did on myself. And I literally called the realtor. I'm like, "Hey, so this is Pastor Channock. I met you a couple weeks ago, but I had a buddy who said there's a contract waiting for me for $130,000 on this property down on Silver Street." "Yep, Mr. Banet, I have it here. You want me to email it to this email address and blah, 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 so you can sign it?" I'm like, "Yes, let's do it." So just different things like that, different stories happen throughout the process. So we have the 4 homes. We have the headquarters, that what we called it. We've renovated all the properties fully. And we're not talking about basic living conditions. Like when we get the houses, we fully renovate them. Most of them we've gutted to studs and restarted from scratch. We do tile in all the showers and tubs, granite countertops, new appliances, new kitchen cabinets. I mean, you know, if you actually go and the listeners go to thepowerofre.com, you can see all of the homes, the process, the program, all of it. But it's a pretty cool thing. And then we've used this building because there's actually this, including the building, there were 7 different churches on a 1-mile street called Silver Street in New Albany. 7.
I drove that street. Yeah, Corey told me about that. Okay.
And we're like, no way we're going to open up and plant more campuses and have more services and do that. No, like that's not our model anymore. That's not what we're going to be about and what's successful. But what does the community need? Well, being a part of a lot more contracting and being in the real estate world, I've met so many amazing Hispanic families that have nowhere to gather. So I've offered it now. They meet at that building on Friday nights completely for free. They have a meal together. They share resources. Met a guy from Costa Rica, Pastor Jimmy, who now a part of our community, and he just leads that, heads it up. And it's not anything like churchy, even though like, you know, he'll encourage and share Jesus with people, but it's just literally an open place for that overlooked community to come to actually be seen, heard, share resources. And it's really amazing. We have an addiction recovery that's very New Covenant based, that someone actually came out of Celebrate Recovery and said it needs to be more identity based and more New Covenant kingdom based, more grace based, more union based. So he wrote his own recovery program, and it's called Unveiled. Yeah. It meets on Thursday nights out of that building. His name's Eric Simpson, who's an awesome dude. We have trauma-based therapy on Tuesday nights. We have resume writing and entrepreneurial workshops that are on Wednesday night, Monday and Wednesday night. It's just turned into this thing that's just been so amazing, actually meeting the needs of the community. But a couple of things I want to share too. Yeah, come on. Just because I want the listener to know, like this might sound like it's like some grand scale. This has all just happened within 2 years, but it's just from people just saying yes and living in the flow. Like we're not forcing any of this stuff, and God just keeps coming through. But even the transformation with the community at large, the transformation that's been happening in neighbors' lives of the homes that were there, and we're basically bringing light and love into a street and into a community very practically. And one of the homes, our second home that we purchased, we got to work right away, and we realized the house next door was pretty dilapidated, pretty bad shape. And then we come to discover from our other neighbors around, like, don't go to that house. That's like the known neighborhood drug dealer that lives there. And I'm thinking that's exactly the house we need to go to. And we were outside working one day, and a lady just looks outside, sees all these people out working on a house and looking real strange, and, you know, just trying to check it out, what's happening in like my neighborhood right on my street. And so she waves to me. So what you don't know about me, maybe, Jason, is I'm an extrovert. If someone glances at me and gives me a smile, I take that as an open opportunity to go just say hi, have a conversation, like immediately.
Right.
So she waves actually at me. And so I beeline it to her. Hey, I'm Channock, and this is what's happening. I'm sure you're probably like freaked out, all these people running around the house. And at that point, there was like 20 or 30 volunteers there helping out. And she's like, yeah, I'm seeing a lot of people around, and I'm telling her about what the ministry, telling her about what we're doing. And she's like, hey, can I show you a few things? And so I'm like, okay. So she invites me into her house, and she's like, hey, I got this part of the sink that's falling apart. And, this thing, could you maybe help me and find some contractors for me, or, see what I can do? And I was like, yeah, I can maybe connect you with a few people that I know. And as I was leaving, I was like, what's up with your stove? I noticed she had a stove, but the oven door was missing. So all she had was the stovetop.
Right.
And she had like a crock pot or something next to it. It's like, what's up with your stove? And she's like, oh, it didn't work. We tried to take it apart. I couldn't change the heating element. So we just been using these crock pots and stuff. And I'm like, okay. But in that moment, I heard the Spirit say, tell her I'm going to get her a stove. And so I was like, oh. I mean, this is the neighborhood drug dealer too, mind you.
Right.
And I'm like, okay. So I said, hey, Teresa, this might sound really weird. And like, I don't know if you're spiritual at all. Like, we haven't had any of those conversations, but God just wanted me to tell you that he's going to get you a stove. And he's like, I need a stove. And I'm like, we see you need a stove. I know that. And I was like, I don't know if I can, but we'll see what happens. So I leave. Week goes by, and I thought surely that I heard from the Spirit. So again, in the flow, I'm not going to go out and buy one. I'm not going to make calls. Like, no, something's going to happen. Week goes by, nothing. 2 weeks goes by, and I'm like, God, maybe you're just using me to go pay money and buy this lady a stove, because I said that out loud. So now I can't let you down.
Right.
like we could ever let God down. But still, it's my process and how I'm thinking. Sure. And so I go to Home Depot. 2 weeks later, I go to Home Depot. I'm walking around the appliance section, and I'm thinking, okay, I'm just going to have to buy this lady a stove. And then I'm looking, I'm like, $450. Like, I'm going to have to pull out of my pocket. Well, this is a new nonprofit. I have no money, no money to spend, like extra stuff. Right. Like, I'm just going to have to buy this. I'm going to have to just call my wife and say, hey, honey, we had to pay $450 for this lady oven. I'm sorry. We just had to do it.
Holy Spirit, totally.
Yeah. Holy Spirit said he's going to get her a stove, and I guess he's going to use us. And
I've done that many times, man.
Yeah, so I'm there and I'm getting ready to buy it, and then I'm like, no, God. And I had kind of had it out with God for a second. I said, God, when I started this, I told you I'm not going to force anything. Everything's going to have to be done in the flow. You're going to have to come through. I'm not doing it. This is a true story. I walk out of the appliance section. In the next aisle, I'm leaving. I'm just leaving Home Depot. I'm not even getting anything else. There's a guy there. He stopped me. It's Channock. And I'm like, yeah, hey, what's up? He's like, hey, I'm so-and-so. I'm so-and-so's brother. I actually visited your church 2 weeks ago. I'm like, oh, that's cool. And we were talking, and he was like, man, I really love how you were sharing about how we're all God's children. And man, I really connect with that, and how we need to be connected to the community and showing love. I'm not a big church guy, but I can get behind what you were saying. I love that. I'm like, oh, that's cool. And then I was like, well, what are you doing in here at Home Depot? Oh, I'm doing this and this. And he asked me what I was doing. I was like, well, I was going to buy this lady a stove, I think, but I'm going to maybe find one on Facebook Marketplace, or I'm going to check somewhere else. He goes, you need a stove? And I'm like, yeah. He goes, man, you're not going to believe this. I'm like, well, okay, I will believe it. He's like, no, seriously, I got a stove out in my truck. I helped somebody move yesterday. And today I was thinking, where am I going to drop this stove off? I need to find somebody that needs a stove. Why don't we? And I was like, dude, are you serious? He goes, yeah. Like, well, let's go drop it off. So he literally followed me from Home Depot. We went over, dropped it off, hooked it up. And I told Teresa, like, hey, I told her the story real quick. And I was like, this is because you are a beloved daughter.
Come on.
Regardless of your behavior, regardless of what you've been doing, regardless of how you've lived, doesn't matter. You are loved, and there's absolutely nothing you can do about it. And this is just a small, tangible way that our dad was letting you know he sees you, he loves you.
Come on.
So we started, I mean, it's just a stove, but at the same time, I now see Teresa, and man, she'll reach out, she'll text me, hey, can you pray about this for me? Can you do this? And it's never like anything like super needy. Now, I've had to get on her a few times about what it means to be a good neighbor now that we got a mom living there. And I've had to remind her she's done a few things that are a little shady. And but at least I can bring it up with her now and have those conversations, and she knows who to turn to and who to talk to when she needs encouragement or prayer or anything. And so it's just super cool. All of that's just a very, I mean, honestly, Jason, we could sit here now the rest of the day for the next 4 or 5 hours, and I could tell you story after story exactly like Teresa with the stove. The same thing continues to happen.
Hey everyone, Bob Switzer of the Epic Narrative Podcast. Have you ever heard a sermon or looked at a passage and thought to yourself, I'd like to know more about that character? Or maybe you've heard a sermon and you've looked at the passage and thought, man, God does not look good in that one. Well, on the Epic Narrative Podcast, we take the time to look at the whole story. And we believe God is good and always has been good all through time. We do take time to ask the hard questions. We explore the culture. We examine some of the misunderstandings that have led to misbeliefs about God and His goodness. Now, you can binge a whole season for a complete story. You can look up a passage or a character in order to get something specific, or you can tune in weekly for new episodes released every Monday. But we invite you to join us and search and find that God has always been good and only good on the Epic Narrative Podcast.
It's amazing. And I love those stories. And I also love, for those, there's something powerful in moving in the flow, as you call it, the pace of peace.
Yeah.
I've had these conversations, and I think some of them, as a young man, I used to describe faith as risk, and I would say it's like jumping out of an airplane. But as I got older, I was like, no, faith is about what's on your back. And if you jump out of an airplane without a parachute, you're just a young man, an idiot. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so I've learned that I've had these same conversations where, and I won't get into details because it's not necessary, but where I've had the conversations with my father where I'm like, I said yes, but you're going to pay for this.
Yeah.
like I'm going to move at the pace. Like I'm going to trust that you've got it, because there were times in the past where, we didn't have it, but I'd still pull $500 to talk to my wife, pull $500 out of our account and go and anxious the whole way,
Yeah.
No peace. And then angry at God 2 years later, because not even really, but you know what I'm saying? I love what you're talking about, that there's I think that it's the fruit of union. It's the fruit of that message.
Oh, 100%.
Laid out practically and how you guys are doing this. But bro, the impact, my wife, I was going to say my wife is going to be thrilled about this conversation. We've been talking with, we have a small group that gathers, but also we have a group online, the Facebook group that continues to grow, and another community that we're growing. Anyway, online communities. And sometimes recently there was a conversation, and folks were getting caught up with conversations about theology, getting heady and starting to get like picking at each other, even though we're talking about union,
Right.
My wife and feeling like I'm not connected, and my wife jumped on, and she doesn't do Facebook very often. She likes to not be involved in any public facing interactions, but she was like, she's like, the best advice I can give you is to go serve.
100%.
Is to go, if you're lonely, if you don't feel like you've got community, if this theology feels like it's just in your head and not in your heart, you actually can't feel it. If you're disconnected, if you don't feel connection with your family the best thing you can do is find a place that moves you and go serve. Soup kitchen, go serve, because you will become one with who you are, how you were designed to be, and you will find connection. You will find community. Don't worry about the theology of even the place that you're serving. Nobody's got it right, including us. It's how do you become a conduit of love? Not that love is just a heady thing, but it is a practical outflowing. And so what you're describing, I would love to hear how it's impacted the church.
Well, I was just getting ready to go into that based on the story you just said and what you shared. And our church has responded like crazy, not only giving to it, like all these properties I've been able to purchase and pay for. There's no debt on anything yet. I think God's given us bigger dreams and bigger vision. So some of that stuff might be coming, but everything right now has been fully paid for, but fully funded by our community, but not just our community. People are hearing about the story from other states, other places, giving, other countries are giving and being a part. They're doing the Amazon wish list for the moms and coming through. But they're also showing up to serve and volunteer like crazy. And what I keep telling people is what your wife just said is so true. To get out and serve and to actually be the church, I promise you'll make like deeper, better friendships. Yeah. You'll actually, not only feel a sense of accomplishment, but there is something about whenever you just truly just serve with like no strings attached, that really like exudes like God's love to people, and you feel it tangibly, and you feel it, as you're doing it. And what I found is we do these things called Surf Saturdays, and a lot of the church will show up, and church actually happens. People are hearing, and sharing stories about what people are going through life. Just last week, what one of the guys that were there, he just went through a divorce, and then another guy had been through a divorce, and they were ministering to each other and encouraging each other and praying with each other. They got each other's numbers. I've heard they've been, hooking up and going out to, coffee together to be encouraged and texting each other, and people are prophesying over each other. And right there, while they're painting or doing demo, they'll stop and they'll give time and attention to hear people's stories and connect. And what I tell people all the time on Sunday mornings, I come into this place at Hill City, and I'm like, I love being here, but man, like I had church for 3 hours yesterday during our serve day. Like, and it's true. Like more ministry, I think, happens when we're coming alongside that and serving in that capacity. Sometimes that would like more than it would ever happen within the four walls of a church, where people's lives are directly impacted. And so, like it's been transformational, like for our church, for our people. Like, man, I've never seen this much celebration. Like when I put out a need, like, hey, we have one of our moms moving into a home. Here's the Amazon wish list. Like, here's the stuff that they need to get started. Like people are actually cheering that they have something to give to. Like they'll give an applause. Yeah. And then within an hour, all 70, 80 items are boom, taken.
That gets me emotional, man.
Like not having to worry about anything. And so here's moms that are now getting, the practical help, and they're getting to have a safe, nice environment to raise their kids in. Like this is more than just like a house. It's really creating a foundation of hope for them to build their life on. There's people that are showing them love and care. Yes, by buying them new dishes, new bedding sheets, new toys for their kids. Like, why not be a part of that? We think we just have to be, like you said, like all in theology and heady and teaching and, all the right perspectives and this and this and this. When sometimes at the end of the day, what makes the biggest impact are those small, tangible ways that you can show up for people in their everyday life. And I think that's what we're doing. And so that's been amazing. And I told you right before we started to air the podcast, something today actually happened that it shouldn't blow my mind from all the stuff that's happened, but it continues to blow my mind what God is doing. And, all I do is continue to share the story of what we're doing, of what God's doing. We actually have a few other churches that are now modeling what we're doing. There's a town, 2 towns over. Pastor came over, heard about what we're doing, and got all like the blueprint stuff, all the material from me, how we got started, sat down, went to, see a couple of the properties. And this was last year. He actually called me a few months ago and texted me a picture of their first house that they finally raised the money for, bought, so that they can offer it to a single mom in their community at affordable rate, affordable housing. So it's pretty awesome. But all I do is share the story. I happen to be sharing the story at a family gathering. It was my nephew's graduation party this past May. And let me back up a little bit. In April, we had a board meeting, our first official board meeting for the nonprofit. And we talked about what we've done to this point. And having these properties, it does cost, right? There's finances that are needed, even maintenance and insurance and utilities on the HQ. Like there's just operating expense. And I just said, we're going to have to come up with ways to, I'm not a fundraiser. I don't do that. but I said there's got to be ways that we can generate income because we need operating expense. And I don't want to just, I haven't picked up the phone and called anyone, and I don't want to start doing that.
Right.
So let's start thinking about this. That happens in April. In May, I'm just sharing the story of what we've done so far, some of the stories that I've shared with you already about it. And one of my uncles were there. He's a retired doctor in our community. And he actually texts me 2 weeks later and says, hey, can we talk? So I call him and he says, I can't get away from the testimonies and what you were sharing about ReLife, and the Spirit won't let me get away with this, or get away from this, but I have a house. I'm supposed to offer it to you. And I was like, okay. He goes, and I can't give it away. I'm like, well, you can give it away. Like, that's possible. We can do that. He goes, no, but I tell you what, I could give it to you at cost. And I've seen all the houses and the work and the volunteers and how you fix them up. It's going to take a lot because it's a bigger house. And he goes, I don't think a mom would be able to come in and like maintain this size of a home, but you could fix it up, sell it. And he said, word for word, you can take that money and use for operating expense for ReLife. What we just talked about in our board meeting. And I said, we got to come up with creative ways, but we're going to live in the flow and God's going to take care of it.
Come on.
So I bought the property from him, and I'll just throw out numbers. I don't care. I bought the property for him for $185,000. Yeah. We put $100,000 into it. So we have $285 in this property. The work got finished last week. It got staged on Friday. I listed it Saturday. This is just 2 days later. It got into a bidding war, and we got not only a full price, we got an above price cash offer, $395,000. We're talking about walking away with $90,000 to $100,000 to put back into the ministry. Yes, we put in the work and put our hands to work, but God orchestrated and facilitated it all in the flow of what we're doing.
Wow.
And it's just things like that that are just so wild, that blow my mind. And I wanted to share because it literally happened this morning. I signed that contract and accepted that offer right before we jumped on the podcast. And so
come on.
So it's one of those things that I'm blown away, but at the same time I shouldn't be. Like, we see God do this stuff all the time. And I also love it because he's blessed the work that we put our hand to. We just didn't pray for it to happen, and it just I love some of those stories sometimes where, hey, we went out to the mailbox and the check was in the mailbox, and the gift. And I love those stories. And I think God is all in those stories. But I'm also even more now, I think the older I get, appreciative of people who have a vision, and it's a God-given vision, but they actually work it out and see God come through in their work. And I feel like that's what we're doing and what's happening. And it's just amazing.
Bro. And it's fulfilling, if you've done the work, then you've grown in the skill and you've grown in the ability, it impacts you. So then there's a sense of, being gifted something is wonderful. But again, I wouldn't knock that either, but there's something about partnering,
it's a sense of co-laboring, really.
Co-laboring, and it's who he is. I mean, it's even I teach on Naaman getting healed, and he wanted to have abracadabra. Hey, just put your hand. I'll pay for it. You and no, it's like no. I'll go take a bath. Do it seven times. Just the idea that you're going to partner in this. Now, if someone's out there and they just want to cut a check to ReLife Incorporated for $100,000, like, I will gladly accept it, and I will put that to amazing use. 100%. But even then, it's because you've been stewarding and you've been walking, and so those things actually are the full. I would hope that this podcast expands. I think hopefully folks are calling to write you checks, but also calling to say, hey, we want to do this. And we want to learn how to do this where we are. So I love it, man. I love this conversation. I'm grateful we finally had it. We're going to be in the Netherlands next year together. We are. I'm excited about that. Peter's 2026. It's going to be amazing. Yeah, Corey, you and me. So I'm going to get to actually hang out with you in person again. Maybe before then, but otherwise next year. we should probably, and one more thing, because you've talked about it. You play basketball. I saw some pictures of you as a young man play. You were a looker, man.
I don't know about that, but
were you pretty good? Were you a good ball player?
yeah, I was decent. Yeah, no, I was decent enough to get a couple like small school scholarships. Didn't take them. Honestly, I didn't take them. I turned them down because I wanted to stay close to my girlfriend, who it was a good decision, who eventually became my wife. And so, I didn't want to go away to play ball. But yeah, it's been fun. I actually still keep up with it. I still play. I'm 45 years old. I'll be 46 in a couple weeks, and I still play 3 days a week, believe it or not. And so it feels good, to still be a part of it, because a lot of guys over 40 don't stay up with it. And so being out there, for 46, I'll say I'm a lot better for 46 compared to other 40 and 50-year-olds compared to what I was when I was playing, in high school.
I love it.
But I'll toot my horn just a little bit. We did win the Kentucky Christian School State Championship my senior year, leading scorer, MVP, all that stuff.
There you go.
Which is amazing. So I was okay. But my goal is to get to 50, and I want to do a few of those 50 and over tournaments, and hopefully go and dominate at like 50, 51 against older people than that. But we'll see if that happens or not.
That's awesome. I'm 51. I played hockey, but they don't have any rinks where I am, so I haven't done pickup in a few years, many years now. But I have to find other ways to stay.
Well, when you're in Louisville, there actually is a rink in Louisville, and Corey's a part of the men's league, so he has to hook you up with that when you're in town next time. Yeah, Corey.
Yeah, of course he is. We talked about that. That's our shared background. But, bro, we got to shift and talk about tacos.
Okay, got it.
When I was out there with you guys, Corey took me to a place where we had a fried cauliflower taco.
Oh my gosh, agave and rye.
Agave and rye, yes.
Yeah, that's my taco story, which is so wild because, I tried this before I even heard about it from Corey. Like, it's just one of those things that I needed to try. I've heard about this taco called the Bang Bang Taco from agave and rye, and it's a deep fried cauliflower taco. And man, I got it. And what's wild is it changed my life because I'm not vegan. I am a meat eater.
Yes.
But I go to agave and rye probably now, like, I'll say once a month at least, once a month. But specifically to get that vegan taco,
bro,
it is wild. It is so good. Like, and I can't even describe all of the flavors work out perfectly with the spicy carrots and the nacho cheese. And it's this deep fried cauliflower taco. How could this be my favorite taco when I love like steak and birria tacos? Oh, those are so good too. But man, the Bang Bang Taco from agave and rye is officially my favorite taco of all time.
Come on. And it's fun when I went, Corey was like, you should get one. And I was like, so I think I had a bite of his and I wished I'd gotten one, but I had a couple other tacos there that were amazing. But I just, I'm a meat guy too. So I was just hard to, I was like, I'm going to waste a taco.
You can't believe it. I know. I still have such a hard time believing it. That is that good. And that's what I continue to order. But next time you're in town, we'll definitely hook you up with the Bang Bang Taco.
All right. Well, for sure. Bro, I love this conversation. Love connecting with you. Looking forward to more in-person connections. Let folks know where they can find you. ReLife, it's thepowerofre.com. Is that right?
Yep, thepowerofre.com. You can find all about ReLife. You can go to hillcity.tv. That's specifically the church ministry here. You can find us on Two Pastors and a Mic through YouTube, Apple, Spotify. Yeah. We are on GAN as well.
Yes.
Grace Awakening Network. But those are the ways you can find us and what we're saying, what we're doing, and what we're a part of.
Yeah, man. I love it. Honored to finally get you on the podcast, bro. And I'm loving what's happening and what you guys are doing.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me on, Jason. Appreciate it. Appreciate you, all your listeners, the impact you're making, the impact that just rethinking God is really making, even the online presence and that space for people to be able to talk, to open up, the safe space to share their experiences where they're at, and the rethinking and discovering of a good God who's always been good. It's amazing. So love that.
Amen, bro. Amen. Love you, man.
Love you.